Man, I love being here. Thanks for having me. It's just such a treat for me to be in this place. I sneak over here quite a bit. I love this church. I love this room, this building, this place. It's a beautiful place to come and sit and feel God's presence, but what really makes this church is you all. And the church is the people, and so it's fun to be able to be in the same church together. We're all part of the same kingdom, and so it's a privilege for me to get to come and hang out with you guys whenever I can. So thanks for having me. We've been in this series called Summer in the Psalms, and so I got to pick my psalm, any psalm that I wanted. Psalms are the book of the Bible that's kind of in the middle of the Bible. There's tons of them, written by all kinds of different authors, mostly a guy named David, mostly poetry. They're beautiful and incredible, and I love the psalm particularly that I picked today, Psalm 23. I have a big history with this psalm. When I was just a fourth grader, a young little Jenny Baker fourth grader, I did this psalm as a monologue for a speech competition because I was that kind of Christian. And I showed up with a Bible verse, okay, for the monologue. I was also the kind of Christian that lip-synced to Amy Grant and did a full-on dance to that. Any Amy Grant fans? Does anybody know? I can. Do you want me to? Okay, no. Not today. Next time. I actually do have videos of it. It's quite embarrassing. But I also love this psalm because for the last season that I have been in my life, I have had many days that I have not had my own words. Been through some really rough stuff in the past couple years. Anybody else? Seems like the last couple years have been tough. And for me, for my family, both personally and just in our world, things have been hard. And so sometimes I have not had words, and this psalm is what has been giving me words. I memorized it early on about a year ago, and I'm so grateful because when I didn't have words, this gave me words. So I'm going to read it over you today and allow this to be our words and our prayer as we begin today to talk through this psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right path for his name's sake. And even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I love those words. They're powerful. They may be the most important thing you get out of today is just knowing this psalm is there and you can say it when you don't have words. But when I look at this psalm, I think, gosh, this is what it looks like, or what it's supposed to look like when we follow the shepherd. This is what our life is supposed to be like. Now, you may not be familiar with, what a shepherd does. I don't know how many of you, any shepherds in here today? Yeah, me either. So I didn't know that much about a shepherd, right? So I was reading about what shepherds do, what they were like, and we know that David himself was a shepherd, and he's writing this as a shepherd. And it's pretty amazing when you look at what a shepherd does. Their main job is to really protect, to guard, to look out for their sheep, right? They walk them to pasture to get them the food that they need to take care of them. But many shepherds develop a deep bond with their sheep, and they take really good care of them. Many shepherds name their sheep and know each one by name. You have probably heard before that a good shepherd would have 100 sheep, and he would leave the 99. If he lost one, he would go after and find them. And that is what a good shepherd does. So this is what our shepherd is. So when David is talking about the Lord being his shepherd, he's saying, when I follow this guy, this is what I experience. This is the kind of life I have, like quiet waters, green pastures, restored soul, courage to face the valley of the shadow of death, an overflowing cup, dinner with enemies. This is what life is supposed to be like when I'm following the shepherd. But to be honest with you, for me, Sometimes I'm like, that is not my experience, okay? That sounds great, but if I were to write this song, it would sound a little more like, I want the Lord to be my shepherd, but then I would have to let him lead, and that's annoying. I see your green pastures and your still waters and refreshed soul, but seriously, ain't nobody got time for that, okay? Why also are you making dinner for my enemies? That's weird. Don't prepare a table there. We ain't need to be eating with each other, okay? I got problems with those people. I don't want to sit down and eat with them. Don't worry about preparing a table for us. And then we see the dark valley, and I'm just already so tired. I don't really want to go through a dark valley because it's dark and it's a valley. And I don't want to walk through there. I'd like to run through there. Maybe we could sprint through this dark valley or, just go all the way around it, and then, surely your goodness and mercy will follow me, even if I stay up all night worrying or don't create any space or rhythms in my schedule, if I make no time to know who you are, or if I set my mind on things that are just temporary. Surely I don't need to go at a walking pace to walk with you. Surely you will still give me peace even when I don't go where you lead. Surely this is how it can work. And I don't know if you can relate to that, but that would be probably more what a psalm from my life could often look like. But this life with Jesus as a good shepherd, it's supposed to be different. It's supposed to be a life full of peace and hope and joy. So I just want to ask a question, just for all of us today, me included. Does your life look like that? And if you're not experiencing a life like that, then who is leading you? Is it the Good Shepherd? Today I want to look at 3 specific images. There's so many cool imageries in this passage. They're so beautiful. I could pull out a ton, but I'm going to look at 3 today that I think describe the kind of life we're supposed to have if we're led by the Good Shepherd. And the first one is green pastures and quiet waters. This idea of actually living our life in peace. I read a book recently called Strengthening the Soul of Your Leadership. It's an amazing book. And in the book, she talks about how hurry is a violence on the soul. And that often we don't even take time to ask ourselves how we're doing. How long has it been since you've asked yourself that? One time I was in a yoga class, and the yogi said, "How are you?" And we were laying on the ground, and I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't asked that in a long time, and I just started bawling my eyes out. I don't know. I think she was like, well, that's not what I was expecting. I didn't know we were going there, but it had been so long since I asked, I really didn't know. How are you? How is your soul? A lot of times we don't notice how it's doing. She says in her book, losing your soul is sort of like losing your credit card. You think it's in your wallet, so you don't give it much thought until one day you reach for it and you can't find it. She lists 10 things in us that happen when we are hurried and rushed and overwhelmed and sick at our soul. See if you recognize any of these in you. Irritability, hypersensitivity, restlessness. This is not for you to nudge your neighbor, by the way, on this list, okay? Compulsive overworking, numbness, escapist behaviors, disconnecting from our identity and calling, not being able to attend to human needs like taking a shower, reading a book, resting, sleeping, hoarding energy, slippage in spiritual practices. Do any of these sound familiar to you? And if so, you may want to check in with your soul. How are you doing? What would it look like for you to live a life of peace, a life with green pastures and quiet waters? This is the life we are supposed to have, and it is an unhurried life. It is a peaceful life, and it's not about not being busy. There's a difference between freeing your schedule and actually being unhurried. So you can have a really free schedule, but still be very hurried in your life. Very high anxiety, stressed out wherever you're going, always late, rushing around. Or you can actually be very busy, and your soul could be very unhurried, quiet, still. It's really not necessarily a schedule issue, it's a heart issue. It's what is on the inside of you and what is happening inside of you that is driving wherever it is you're going and whatever it is you're doing. God's invitation is to walk with him along green pastures and quiet waters. So if green pastures and quiet waters are not what we are experiencing, who is leading us? Is it like social media, like Facebook posts? Is that what we're looking to lead us right now? Is it the pace of the world? Is it like FOMO? Or is it like JOMO, like fear of missing out or like joy of missing out? like what is leading us? And what does it look like to follow the leadership of the shepherd? You're invited to be led by the good shepherd. But here's what I'm learning. If you want to learn to walk with God, you have to go at a walking pace. You have to slow down your heart to listen, to make space for him. There's a fun fact about sheep. I don't know that much about sheep. But this fun fact is that a lot of times sheep are assumed to be dumb, which is a real bummer because throughout the whole Bible, we're compared to sheep all the time. Is that some kind of joke? I think that's actually pretty true. But anyway, they're actually not that dumb. The reality is that they can't see. They're really, really, really nearsighted. And so what sheep have to do is develop their sense of hearing, really strong. So what's amazing about them is they have crazy sense of hearing. And what's beautiful about the relationship between a sheep and a shepherd is what the shepherd does to lead the sheep is he talks to them and he sings over them. And the sheep learn to know his voice. And they know which way to go based on the voice of the shepherd. This is the invitation for us to quiet the noise of the world and tune our ears to the voice of the good shepherd, to hear him sing over us, lead us, guide us, show us the way. And we can't hear him if we don't tune the rest of the world out and tune into his voice. Our family has a family whistle. Anybody else have a family whistle? Yeah? What's yours? Oh, you don't want to do it. Oh, yeah, okay. Okay. Anybody else? Oh, that's like a bird. This is really cool. Ours is very simple. It's I can't even do it. Okay? It's a bummer because it's kind of common, and then other people have the same whistle, and so you might, be in a busy store and hear a whistle and go to the whistle, and it's, not the parents. But that breaks down the analogy. But the point is that when you have a family whistle, when you're in a crowded space and everything is chaotic, and you hear that whistle, you know it is your people calling. You know where to go. You know what you're drawn to, and it is the same way with our God. When we learn his word and we understand his character, when we know who he is, and we understand the way he leads is through the peace, then we learn in this crazy, chaotic world to understand his voice, and we listen for it, and we walk his way. Isaiah 30:21 says, whether you turn to the right or to the left, your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. And we simply have to arrange our time so that we are living in deep contentment, joy, and confidence in everyday life with God. And that's our job, to be led by the Good Shepherd. He was not hurried. He was not rushed, yet there's no one in the history of this world who has had a greater impact than Jesus. He was part of God's biggest plan for mankind. We literally divide our calendar based on his birth. But here's the thing, as much as he accomplished in the short span that he did, 3 years of ministry, he was never hurried. And he always found time for rest and connection with his Father. So if he can, so can we. When we slow our hearts and our souls down to pay attention to them, we are inviting the Good Shepherd to meet us there, to lead us there, to learn his voice in the slow, still, green pastures, quiet waters. That's when you hear his voice say to you, like he does in Matthew 11, are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me. Get away with me and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me, and you will learn to live freely and lightly. His peace isn't schedule-based, it's not to-do list-based, and it's not circumstance-based, and it is available to us if we will slow down enough to find it. And it is available to us even in the darkest valley, which is the second picture of what I want to look at, what David talked about today. He said that you'll be with me in the dark valley. And I've been through some dark valleys, and like I said, I really prefer to not go through the dark valley. I would rather sign up for the thing that's if you do all the right things and have all the right karma and really work hard, don't worry, nothing bad will happen to you. That is just not my experience. I have seen amazing, incredible, faithful people go through incredible, hard trauma. So that doesn't work for me. I have to believe that this world we will have trouble because Jesus said we would. And when we do, though, the promise is that when we are in the dark valley, he will be with us. And I've experienced some dark valleys, but I have also experienced his presence like never before in those spaces. And here's what I know. God doesn't promise that we won't have dark valleys, but he promises that he will be with us in them. I always love that story of Jesus on the boat with the disciples. And he says, we're going to go to the other side. And so they get in the boat, and while they're on their way there, halfway there, it's a major storm hits. And it is scary, crazy. And I've never personally been in a storm on a boat, but I have seen movies, and it looks super scary when that happens. I mean, water's coming over the side, and frankly, I just don't like cold water. So the idea is just it's be freezing, let alone, deadly also. But super scary, and this is what these guys are experiencing. And they're fishermen, so this is not unfamiliar territory, so it had to be bad because they were scared. And so they're freaking out, and there's chaos up top. And they can't find Jesus, which is been there. I am working so hard. Where are you? He's I'm asleep, okay? I'm downstairs. And so they go down, and they wake him up, and they're Lord, what is going on? Don't you even know? Don't you even care? We're about to die up here. And he's wiping the sleep from his eyes and kind of y'all, calm down. Calm down. And then he goes up and he calms the storm, which is a beautiful thing that he does for us. Even when we are worried and afraid, he meets us in our lack of faith, which he says to them, you guys lack so much faith. But he calms the storm anyway, because that's what he does sometimes, and it's beautiful when he does. But what I want to catch right here is that there was a beautiful moment the disciples had, this opportunity to go below and to find Jesus sleeping and to just join him there. Because here's the deal. There was chaos up top. It was scary up there. The world was nuts up there. But Jesus was not worried. He was fast asleep. There is chaos in our world. It is nuts out there. There is so much going on. Jesus is not worried. He's not worried. He knows. He's in control. He knows how to get us to the other side. We can trust him. We can trust him. So for you today, if you are in a dark valley and you are not experiencing his presence in your present, I just want to gently ask you here, who's leading you? Who is leading you in this dark valley? Because he's not worried. He's not worried. Who is leading you here? Remember our interesting facts about sheep. So they're super nearsighted. They also have crazy peripheral vision. And so I love that it's compared to us, because it's they literally cannot see what's in front of their face, okay? And that is kind of my experience in my life. Things that are so obvious are right here. And I'm I don't know. I don't know what to do, right? But I also love this picture that we have of the sheep, because as sheep, it's actually right where we're supposed to be. We really can't see very far ahead. And we're really not supposed to be spending all of our time looking at what's behind. We're supposed to stay right here, in the present, with God, trusting him today for what we have today. We are not meant to be where we aren't. So where are you? Are you in the past that you can't do anything about, that he has already redeemed? Are you in the future that you cannot do anything about because he is not there and you are not there? Where are you? Join him in the present. He invites us to do that, and I think one of the coolest ways that he invites us to do that is just by his name. He literally calls himself I am. That's one of the names of God. I am. Meaning like, I am here. I am right here. So if you are walking through a valley today, here's what I believe God is saying to you. You can stop staying up all night. I am. When you wonder who is strong enough to hold your family together, who is loving enough to give you another chance, who is your number one fan? I am. When you can't listen to yourself, think, I am. When everything in the world is falling apart and you don't know who is in control and who is going to fix it, I am. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be strong. You don't have to hold it together. I am. When you want to know who's loving you, who's hearing you, who is waiting for you, who is going to give you hope, I am. So if he is, that means that you're not alone, forgotten, unheard. You're not worthless, you're not broken, you're not a mistake, you're not in control, and you don't have to be. You don't need to strive because it's not up to you. You can let go because he's got it, he's got you, and he's not worried. He is the I am. And what I'm learning is if we will trust God in our present, if we believe that he is for us, just like we sang, he is for you, he is for you, he is for you. If that is true, if we believe he is capable, has not forgotten us, then we can let God be in control when we are not. And we can stay right here in the present, even if in the present is a dark valley. Because what happens in that moment is our what-ifs sort of change. Like, when we're thinking about the future and we're worried about it, our what-ifs are like, man, what if this whole thing falls apart? Like, what if we never recover? What if our marriage doesn't survive this trial? What if my kids keep making those same stupid, foolish mistakes and they keep going down roads that's going to bring them death instead of life? What if we can't afford to keep living where we're living, doing what we're doing? What if I have to get a different job? What if my job doesn't work out? All the things that we say what ifs about, they're good questions when we're not living in the present. They are big questions. They're very scary. They're out there. What if, what if? But here's the deal. Our questions will actually change if we will trust God with our what ifs, and we will come back to the presence, because we can ask, when we fully trust God, we can ask, what if it's good? And not because all of our circumstances are good, but because what if it's good because God is good? What if God does great things with my greatest pain? What if God's plan for my life is actually better than mine? What if my joy doesn't spring from Jesus giving me what I want, but from recognizing Jesus is what I want? What if God's grace and love is so good in the midst of my pain, I actually wouldn't trade what I've had to go through for the new intimacy I have with him? What if it's good? What if I trusted God? And what if it's not good because my circumstances are good, but just simply because God is? He gives us grace for this moment, like only for the present. When we are living in the past or the future, we're not living in the grace that is available to us. So don't be surprised when you don't feel his peace when you're trying to exist outside of it. He's not there. When we're led by the shepherd, staying in the moment, it allows us to experience this life that David described as an overflowing cup, like living with joy. Living with joy. Joy is this amazing thing that happens, and it is like another level. It's not happiness. Happiness is something we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and experience. We put on a happy face. Happiness is like this action that we take, that we do ourselves to perk up and get ourselves together, right? Joy is something that is produced deeply within us, and David describes it as an overflowing cup. Is your cup overflowing? Like when people bump into you, do you spill out joy on them or something else? We have the opportunity to have an overflowing cup of joy, to wake up with our lives and instead of feeling dread, to feel anticipation, to feel something otherly happening inside of us. And I've seen this at work in people whose lives are horrible, and they are full of joy. That is supernatural. That is something otherly. That is giving God access to something deep within us and asking him to produce it in it. It's kind of like choosing to live like a dog instead of a cat, you know? I know this because I actually have read the diary of a dog and a cat. I don't know if you've ever seen this or there's any cat people in the room, but here's the difference between a dog and a cat, okay? This is the dog's diary. 8 a.m., dog food, my favorite thing. 9:30 a.m., a car ride, my favorite thing. 9:40, a walk in the park, my favorite thing. 10:30, got rubbed and petted, my favorite thing. 12 o'clock, milk bones, my favorite thing. 1 p.m., played in the park, my favorite thing. 3 p.m., wagged my tail, my favorite thing. 5 p.m., dinner, my favorite thing. 7 p.m., got to play ball, watched TV with my friends, my favorite thing. 11 p.m., sleeping on the bed, my favorite thing, okay? Here's the cat's diary. Day 983 of my captivity. My captors continue to taunt me with bizarre little dangling objects. They dine lavishly on fresh meat while the other inmates and I are fed harsh or some other sort of dry nugget. Although I make my contempt for the rations perfectly clear, I nevertheless must eat something in order to keep my strength. The only thing that keeps me going is my dream of escape. In an attempt to discuss them, I once again vomit on the carpet. Today, I decapitated a mouse and dropped its headless body at their feet. I had hoped this would strike fear into their hearts, since it clearly demonstrates my capabilities. However, they merely made a condescending comment about what a good little hunter I am. I am convinced that the other prisoners here are flunkies and snitches. The dog receives special privileges. He is regularly released and seems to be more than willing to return. He is obviously a moron. The bird must be an informant. I observe and communicate with the guards regularly. I am certain that he reports my every move. My captors have arranged protective custody for him in an elevated cell, so he is safe for now. Yes. Sorry if you're a cat person, but it's kind of true, right? Sometimes I feel like my post-COVID life, the last couple years, I've looked a lot more like the cat and the dog. Like, I look at my life and I am only seeing the hard things, the things that are so taxing and exhausting and broken and miserable. And in my heart, I want to be like the dog with this overflowing cup of joy, that everything feels like something positive, something hopeful. And not because life is so great, but really because my trust in God is so big that whatever I experience, I see it through a different filter. I experience life differently because of what I know God has done for me and because of what I know he is doing. If we're supposed to be living from an overflowing cup, how is your cup? Does it feel like it is starting to run dry? And if you are experiencing a dry, empty cup, let me just ask you, who is leading you? Who is leading you? Is it your circumstances? Is it the day in, day out, things that just feel too hard to even manage? Is it your feelings? When you wake up in the morning, you decide if it's going to be a good or bad day based on what you feel. Man, I'm such a feeler that is so something that I tend to do, and I can totally get there. And then I read this thing the other day that I thought was so helpful by a guy named Pete Scazzaro. Sorry, you guys smarter than me know who that is. His books are amazing, but I don't know how to say his name. Anyway, he said, feelings are like children when you're on vacation. You can't put them in the driver's seat or stuff them in the trunk. You have to listen to them, take care of them, protect them, and at times give them boundaries. And I resonate so much with that because so often I'll wake up in the morning and I'll ask my feelings to lead me. They are not good leaders. It's important to listen to them, pay attention to them, ask them why they are what they are and why they're there, and bring them to the table. But they're not good leaders. When we are being led by the Good Shepherd, we have this opportunity to be an overflowing cup of joy. And joy deserves a seat at the table too. When we look at our lives, what does our joy look like? And I'm just going to say this because this has been super helpful to me. One of the best things that I have learned to do to experience joy is actually just laugh. Like, it's actually the best marital advice that I've ever gotten. My husband and I were wrestling, and not like literally, but like we were really struggling a while back and just kind of going like, oh my gosh. Like, we just kept hitting wave after wave after wave. And somebody asked us, how long has it been since you've laughed together? And we literally couldn't remember the time because things had been so heavy for so long. So we were like, okay, we have a lot to work on, but we're going to commit to laughing together a lot. And so we did. We started listening to podcasts that just made us laugh out loud. We'd watch YouTube videos that were just hilarious. And we would laugh so hard together. My husband is hilarious. And, it's hard when you're hilarious and no one laughs at your jokes. So I started laughing at his jokes again. And I'm telling you guys, it lifted the load of our home. It became lighter in there. Joy began to fill our walls again. I'm telling you, there's something to this. Proverbs 17:22 says, a cheerful heart is a good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. It's a real thing, what laughter does to our hearts and minds and souls. Listen, it's hard to have an overflowing cup if your cup is empty. We need to learn to live like a dog. Fill your cup. Find things that bring you joy and put them into your life. Laugh more. Laugh with your kids. Play stupid games that make you look so stupid. Do it. Watch funny shows. Have fun. I got 2 words for you. Nate Bargatze, okay? If you don't know who it is, look it up. You will laugh so hard. Bring laughter back into your lives, into your homes. And what you're going to find is your cup starts to be filling up again. Starts to fill up with joy. And we can do that in the midst of trauma, in the midst of trials. I think sometimes we think that if we were to choose joy and choose laughter, if we were to allow that in, that it somehow makes the big, hard things in our life like not as important. Let me just tell you something. It actually makes the big, hard things in your life possible. If you will allow joy in, and you will choose to allow your cup to be filled, then you will have a reservoir of hope, of joy, of peace that will pour out when you need it. This is the life that the Good Shepherd offers us when we follow him. So that's your invitation today, to follow him. To follow him wherever you are. Maybe it's the first time you ever even thought of it as an option, like that Jesus could be like that following Jesus was actually not a bunch of rules and a bunch of things you had to do, but it was actually a laying down of your own life and trusting him with it. That's an invitation to you today. If you've been following Jesus for a long time, but you're recognizing even through the psalm going like, I don't know if he's actually leading me though. It is as simple as inviting him into every moment. Every moment that you feel like, oh, wait a minute, this is not quiet waters. This is not green grass. This is a dark valley and I'm doing it alone. This is an empty cup that has a hole. Every time we realize that, we get to invite in the Good Shepherd and say, start leading me. Start leading me here. Take me down the path that you have for me. May we today learn how to let this Good Shepherd lead us and then be able to experience this life of peace, life of hope, life of joy. Let's pray together. Lord God, I just thank you so much for who you are. I thank you for the truth of your word and that we can look at it today at this beautiful poem that David wrote so long ago, and we can take it and actually apply it back to our own lives today in the chaos of our world and the craziness, Lord. Let us be led by the Good Shepherd who never changes and who is the same yesterday, today, and forever, who is the great I am that we can look to so that we can go, good, because I am not, and we can trust you with our lives. I pray that as a community we would experience how to do that better. We love you. We invite you in to lead our lives, to guide us. And we thank you for the way that you do it. In Jesus' name, amen.